The Tory MP Danny Kruger and the Labour MP Kerry McCarthy hold strong and opposing views on how we should treat future food imports. Danny used to advise Boris Johnson in Number 10, and Kerry is a former Shadow Environment Secretary. Is the Prime Minister right about anti-American mumbo-jumbo? I asked Danny Kruger.
There's certainly a lot of anti-Americanism, and this very important and, frankly, scientific debate does get confused with a lot of concern about objections to the US and to the US president, which shouldn't have any part of this. We do need to take very seriously the contrast in food standards and in production standards between the US and the UK. And in any trade deal, we need to make sure that we are not importing food that is produced to a lower standard than our food. But that doesn't mean we can't do a perfectly good deal with the US.
So, specifically, do you have any problem with, say, genetically modified beef, which the Americans eat, or chlorinated chicken, which is the way they sanitise their chicken products?
Well, I don't think we should be importing food that is produced to lower standards than ours. So what we are doing now, we have this enormous great market in the British agriculture market, and we can now use that to press for higher standards with our trading partners. And
is genetically modified food a lower or higher standard?
Well, that's a good question. The great opportunity we have now is we are now setting our own food standards, and if we decide, as the UK has for many years, that we're not having GM in our food chain, then we're not going to be importing that either.
Kerry McCarthy, are you a spreader of mumbo-jumbo, as the Prime Minister would have it?
Well, no, and neither are the NFU.
The National Farmers Union.
National Farmers Union, yeah, and they are very concerned that if we allow lower quality, cheaper American imports into this country, it will undercut British farmers. Clearly, if we're allowing cheaper American produce, and it's cheaper because they do cut corners in terms of food safety or animal welfare, incredibly intensive, thousands and thousands of animals crammed into a small space, our farmers will then have to compete with that, and they just won't be able to compete with that, and they'll end up going out of business. I'm open-minded about GM. What I'm concerned about is the overuse of antibiotics in the American farming system, the fact that rates of food poisoning are 10 times higher in the American population, things that have been banned in the EU for a long time, like hormone-pumped beef and chlorinated chicken and all those issues, use pesticides and so on, that will be allowed. Now, I think that is possibly the Tories' secret agenda, that they will come under such pressure because of American imports, because of this trade deals. Farmers will say, well, the only way we can compete is to play them at their own game.
Danny Kruger, it is true to say that the government has refused to accept not just Kerry McCarthy's thoughts, but also the National Farming Union's attempt to legislate to keep food standards exactly the same. The government have specifically declined to do that. What we are doing is we are making an absolute commitment to the highest possible food standards. What we're not going to accept is an amendment from Labour that insists on particular standards.
Well, I am pretty sure that the government doesn't want it in there.
Danny Kruger, the US Senate is very keen on agriculture. They simply won't allow a trade deal with any other country unless it benefits US farmers in some way.
Well, it doesn't have to be a zero-sum situation. It does not have to be one party gains at the other's expense. There should be the opportunity to create a trade deal that benefits both sides of this conversation. It might not be completely comprehensive in the sense of being able to, suddenly every single foodstuff is allowed to be imported and exported, but we should be able to have a system which enables us to export our amazing world-class food produce to the US and to other countries around the world, and enables consumers to benefit from produce from overseas. That is not beyond possibility this year.
Kerry McCarthy, are you optimistic about any of these new opportunities?
No. The flexibility and freedoms are the flexibility and freedoms to lower standards. And when you say opening our markets to competition, I don't think you've given an answer on that our farmers want to maintain high standards. They're actually quite proud of their higher standards. But you can't do that if you are allowing the Americans to flood the market with cheaper produce, because most people don't have the luxury of buying. Ideally, people would all say, well, this is much higher welfare, this is produced organically, this is locally sourced, we'll pay for it. There's some people that can pay a fortune for your locally produced, organic, pasture-fed meat. Most people end up going to the supermarkets and shopping around for the cheapest thing, and then you end up with the horse meat scandal type ready meals for 99p, and you haven't got the slightest idea what is in them. And my fear is that this is opening the door to even more of that. We've got huge numbers of people in food poverty in this country. They will go for the cheapest produce, and that won't be British.
Kerry McCarthy and Danny Kruger on what Brexit might mean for our food.